soaking wet. Welcome in Lamont Wade Jr. Honored to have my guest on today, Kyle Harrison. Let's bring a friend of mine in, Pat Burrow. Pat, how are you today?
Bill, I'm doing great, man. Glad to be on with you.
Giants fans, this is Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
On your exclusive home of the San Francisco Giants, KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM. The sports leader.
40,051. Everybody on their feet now. 2 down, 9th inning. Walker's 2-strike pitch. Strike 3 call. He got the call on the outside. And it was somewhere in the vicinity of the outside corner. And he got that call. 3 up and 3 down. Walker, who seems to have figured some things out. He had told us as much a couple of days ago after a side session. And he gets the save here, protecting a 1-run lead on only 7 pitches.
Welcome into a Sunday extra inning post-game show with Bill Laskey, and it was a Sunday fun day. 40,000 Giant fans are walking out of Oracle Park, and the Giants end up sweeping the Athletics, and they won this game 3-2. It started with the first pitch of the game and ended up with 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning and some superb bullpen pitching. And this is what the Giants are made of, no question about that. Justin Verlander had a tough game today. Really didn't throw the ball well. Velocity was down, got behind a lot of hitters. Only went 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 5 walks. Really was throwing okay until the 4th inning after he got the first 2 guys out, got in trouble with a couple walks, and ended up getting a base hit to Lawrence Butler. And that was really the only runs that the Athletics scored today. The bullpen, again, was outstanding. They go 5 innings in this game. 1 hit, 3 strikeouts, no runs. In this entire series, this bullpen shut out the the Sacramento Athletics, my fault. 10 innings pitched in 3 games, 1 hit, no runs, 9 strikeouts, 1 walk. They pick up 2 wins and 1 save. Can I say that again? 10 innings pitched, 1 hit, 9 strikeouts, 1 walk. That's what this bullpen has done in this 3-game sweep of the Athletics. And timely hitting today by 2 batters that we've been talking about that have been struggling. Lamont Wade Jr. with a triple in the 8th inning to lead off the inning. Pinch hitting for Sam Huff. Hits a 2-2 fastball by Tyler Ferguson. Hits it into deep right center field and stands up at third with a triple. And then Patrick Bailey, pinch hitting for David Villar, sees the first pitch with the infield in, and he hit a base hit up the middle to tie the game. And right then and there, the momentum shifted to the Giants. Nice sacrifice bunt by Christian Koss gives Bailey the second base. And Elliot Ramos, who has just been really dialed in for the month of May, he comes up with a nice base hit in the 8th inning, and he gets the winning RBI, and he ends up getting 2 RBIs for the game. And the Giants end up winning 3-2. Going back to little numbers on Elliot Ramos, how about these numbers? In his last 15 games, he's 21 for 53, 21 hits for 53 at-bats. He's hitting .396. This man's on fire. They let him off today, as I said. The first pitch he saw from Jeffrey Springs hit it 408 feet, 111 miles an hour off his bat, a 91-mile-an-hour fastball, and he dead-redded right to center field, and the Giants had a 1-0 lead. But Jeffrey Springs was everything we talked about. On the show last night, I talked about his changeup, his good sweeper, a fastball, the 3-pitch match that he really stymied the Dodgers, and he stymied the Giants today. 20 straight hitters in a row. 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, 3 up, 3 down. He was magnificent for the Athletics, and the Giants just couldn't figure him out. They ended up taking him out after Matt Chapman got a base hit with 2 outs in the 7th inning. And Justin Sterner came in. He ended up getting a fly ball to center field. And Matt Kotze ended up going to the bullpen once again in the 8th inning. His setup man, Tyler Fitzgerald, and he pitched really well the other night. Went 1 inning, punched out 2, only threw 12 pitches, 9 for strikes. Well, today they got to him. And as I said, Wade hitting a triple, Bailey hitting a base hit and Ramos getting the game-winning hit, and the Giants prevailed with a 3-2 win. 28-19 for the San Francisco Giants in their last 47 games. 16-7 at Oracle, 12-12 on the road, 14-7 against the American League, 14-12 against the National League. And now the Kansas City Royals come to town, and Kansas City has been scuffling a little bit. They have not been playing that well of baseball. When you look at what they've done in the past 3 series, they lost to the Red Sox. They've only won 1 game out of 3. They only won 1 game out of 3 against the Astros, and the Cardinals came into town, and they won today 2-1, and they lost 2 out of the 3 against the Cardinals. So coming into the series, they're 3-6. But boy, they got a lefty pitching for them tomorrow. A 27-year-old Chris Bubic. He's 4-2 with a 1.66 earned run average against Robbie Ray, and we know what the Giants do when Robbie Ray gets on the mound. They're 9-0 in his 9 starts. Of course, Robbie Ray himself is 6-0 with a 3.04 earned run average. A good matchup tomorrow, 6:45 first pitch right here on KNBR. Got a great show lined up today. Ended up talking to Kyle Harrison this past week and seeing how he's feeling, seeing how his velocity is and his breaking ball and how he's adapting to go to the bullpen. Then I sat down with a good friend of mine, Hall of Famer Jim Cott, and we really talked a lot about pitching. I just love this guy. He just knows so much about pitching. A 7-time Emmy Award winner back when he was broadcasting for the Yankees. Of course, he did ESPN baseball. His mind at 86 is so clear. It's amazing how this man is living his life out in Connecticut, and he's just enjoying life. And I just love talking baseball with him. And you'll hear that interview later today. All right, let's get on the phone lines, 415-808-KNBR. Let's get the phone lines ringing. Let's tell me about what you thought in this series. Some really good pitching on the San Francisco Giants side, as well as some timely hitting. And I think this is just going to generate more and more if we can see Bailey and Wade start producing as they did, as they get their confidence going on the offensive side. I'm Bill Laskey. This is the Extra Inning Postgame Show. More coming up right here on KNBR, the sports leader.
listening to the former Giants righty. It's KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Heard on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR.
Bailey leads away from second. And the pitch. Swinging a hard ground ball into left field. Base hit. Here comes Bailey. He's going to be waved home by Matt Williams. Here comes a throw by Soderstrom. Swing! Now between first and second, Ramos is hung up. The throw goes over to first. Running him down is Kurtz towards second. He flips the ball to Wilson, the shortstop. He runs him toward first. He flips the ball to the catcher, and he runs out of the baseline and is out. But the Giants have gone ahead. 3-2. The great at bat by Elliot Ramos to knock in Bailey.
All right, back on the Extra Inning post-game show on a fun day Sunday. Giants win today 3-2, a come-from-behind win as they were down 2-1 going into the bottom of the eighth inning. The Athletics were dealing. Boy, Jeffrey Springs, this was outstanding today. He got 20 up and 20 down after Elliot Ramos hits the first pitch of the game for a home run, and a lot of it was his changeup. We always talk about pitching on this show, and the changeup was just dialed in today. He'd start off with a fastball, he'd throw the sweeper in there, and then he'd double back changeups and got a lot of fly ball outs and a lot of ground ball outs. Matter of fact, 6 ground ball outs, 9 fly ball outs. The Giants just couldn't figure it out. They would move up in the box, move back in the box. They were adjusting, but everything was just off the end of the bat or little dribblers out in front until they finally got Matt Chapman to get a base hit in the 7th inning to Chase Springs, and he ended up going 6 2/3, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, no walks, 5 strikeouts, and he bested the L.A. Dodgers in the first game when they played him down there. They won 11-1. He went 7 innings in that game, and he's a damn good pitcher. He ended up pitching for the Tampa Bay Rays for the last 4 years. The Athletics picked him up. He was 4-2 coming into today's game with a nice low earned run average in the 2s. And the Giants just could not get to him. Ramos did the first at bat, but after that, he was dialed in. And on the other side, Justin Verlander just didn't throw the ball well. Velocity was down today. Usually it's about 94, 95. He was at 91, 92 today. And he was yanking the fastball. If you were watching the game on NBC Bay Area, the fastball was just like yanked every time to the left batter's box. He just couldn't straighten it out. The slider was good. The sweeper was good. But overall, it just was not a good outing for Justin Verlander, walking 5 with only 1 strikeout, and that was his 10th start. So we'll see what happens. When you look at his numbers, 84 pitches he threw, only 41 for strikes. So you can see how he was battling to throw strikes. And I always talk about that first pitch strike, only 9 first pitch strikes and 20 batters he's faced. That's just not what we've seen in Justin Verlander. He has been pitching so consistent in the last 5-6 starts. And today was just one of those days that he just couldn't find the strike zone. But what do? You open the door and you let the bullpen in, and that's exactly what the Giants did as they came in and threw 5 spotless innings against the Athletic, who's only given up 1 hit and 3 strikeouts. This bullpen was again masterful. Bivens, Miller, Rodriguez, and Walker. Ryan Walker got his 8th save, and Randy Rodriguez, 3-0, got the win. He was dialed in. He gets that first hitter. It's usually the first hitter. He goes 2-0, 3-0, and comes back and gets him. He ends up throwing 11 pitches, 7 for strikes. Eric Miller, 15 pitches, 10 for strikes. And this is what the bullpen does. They come in 0-1, firing strikes, getting ahead of hitters, and they did that yesterday when we watched them, throw 20 pitches, 19 for strikes, and they got 9 up, 9 down. And today they did it again, and the Giants prevailed with a nice win, 3-2. Now Kansas City comes in for 3 games before they hit the road on a 9-game road trip. And so far, the Orange and Black playing really good baseball this past weekend. All right, let's get to the phone calls. Let's go out to Saratoga. Talk to my buddy Bob. Bob, you're on Extra Innings on a Sunday. Giants sweep the Athletics.
Hi, Bill. I was so glad to see Wade break out. I hope he
continues because, as I said yesterday, I'll still get smart.
Yeah, Bob, I'm losing you again. Here. Call back real quick, and I'll have Kyle pick you up. Let's go to Dennis in San Jose. Dennis, you're on the Extra Inning post-game show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Bill. Listen, here's the thing. Verlander was rushing his pitches. His mechanics were off. And here's a statistic that you got to look up. How many games he started this year and how many of them they won even when they took him out? I think think it's fantastic. I think it's like 8-1 or 8-2.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much, Dennis, but he has kept them in the game, and he's walked off that mound several times with the lead, and sure enough, that didn't prevail for him. Today, he just wasn't sharp. You're talking about, his rushing some pitches. I saw the same thing, especially on the fastball, Dennis. He yanked it. His front shoulders were way off on the mark, and the target he missed immensely. You don't see him walking too many guys, and in the post-game show, he just said he doesn't feel good. Something wasn't right, and he's pitched in 20 years in the big leagues, and you would think he knows mechanics right now, what he has to do to change. And today was one of those days. You just turn the page and you get ready for the road trip.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Bill.
Well, Dennis, what did you think of the comeback from the win in the 8th inning, of course, with Wade and Bailey? I mean, these two guys have been battling the whole time.
We had to win these 3 games, Bill. We had to win the A's because the A's aren't that great of a team really right now. They're a good team, but not great. And we had to beat these guys 3. We got to take all these games that the teams aren't good. We got to beat them. Like Colorado, we got to win those games all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dennis. The Athletics came in here 20-22. They're 22-22 walking in the door, and they faced Seattle. They faced the Yankees. They faced the Dodgers. 3 series in which they really contended against all first-place teams, and they battled with them. A couple games were one-sided, but you got to look at this young team. They are a very young team when you're looking at most of them at 22 and 23 years old. They have a good foundation, and I think the Athletics will do better as they keep growing.
Verlander get his first win. I've been wanting him to win the game right off the bat, but he hasn't been winning it. It's too bad.
Yeah, Dennis, I think a lot of Giants fans would love to see it. I know his teammates do, too. Here's a guy that came over here in a 1-year contract. He's 42 years old. He's given the best he can do. And, the games where they had 8-9 runs, of course, they couldn't get him that much, and he's been going out there. Last game, he lost to Arizona 2-1 on 2 solo home runs by Corbin Carroll. Today, it was just, I really think you're absolutely right, Dennis, about rushing some pitches, not getting in the zone with strikes, and today just wasn't his day with 5 walks.
Yeah. Well,
all right, Dennis, well, thanks for the call today. I appreciate it. All right, let's go back to Bob in Saratoga. Bob, sorry I missed you there, a little static, but how are you?
Can you hear me now okay?
You're good, my friend.
Okay, great. Good. Number one, I wanted to give credit where credit's due. Again, Buster Posey was a guy that kept these great guys everybody wanted us to get rid of, and Farhan would have if he was still here. And I was so glad to see Wade break through today. But he also reduced the payroll. Most people don't know that. And it was by $61 million from last year. And a part of that is Snell, who's now on the DL for the Dodgers. Isn't that great?
How about Conforto, too? Conforto's another one that's falling fast in a Dodger uniform.
Yeah, Buster is just great. And then he promoted from within to the new pitching coach has done a phenomenal job with the bullpen, as you've already pointed out. And he's the guy that got the young fellow that doesn't speak English to correct all of his problems. So, I mean, he deserves a lot of credit. A couple of them. I tell you what, Bob, Randy Rodriguez is another one. And then you look at Camilo Duvall, both of them very good pitchers. Both of them dialed in the strike zone. Randy Rodriguez has an earned run average under a 1 point right now. He comes right at you with that fastball slider. And Camilo Duvall, he looks like he's having fun now. That's the thing I remembered 2 years ago when he was an all-star, where he jumps after he strikes someone out, that little kick, and he smiles. I mean, that's what you want. You want a little emotion from these guys. Yeah. And the last one is I want to give you credit because you were the one that kept mentioning that they kept Ramos in AAA, and he was hitting really well. And because Fargan didn't want him up because he was the previous, his prior general manager who drafted him, etc. But you kept saying it, and finally they brought him up, and now he's our best hitter. So thank you for persisting and keep bringing up his name, and I think that helped if anybody from the Giants is listening to your program.
Yeah, Bob, I appreciate that. That was years ago, and I just didn't understand why they weren't giving him a shot. They'd bring him up for a couple games, and he'd sit on the bench, and here was a guy that was just hitting the hell out of the ball in AAA. Even back in AA when I first started mentioning him, I had one of the first interviews with him when he was in Richmond. He was nervous. He was scared talking to me, you could tell, but he has gotten so much better, and his confidence has gotten so much better. Now, you're listening to him doing interviews. He's so good. He's got that energy. Today, once again, getting 2 game hits. He got the home run and then the game winner. This is something that we like to see. These are young kids that are gravitating now to be good players and even better players, because you can see how he's played better, Bob, in defense in the outfield, and I really think he's gotten a lot better there.
He has, but thank you again for bringing that up over and over and over again, because it was the right thing to do, and I think it had a lot to do with us then finally bringing him up and giving him a chance. But
yeah, Bob, well, thanks for the
you.
call. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and you brought up some valid points, and let's see if this Giants team can continue on in this homestand and beating the Royals. The Royals are coming in here. They've been beat up pretty well. They have not been playing good baseball. They have not been scoring a lot of runs. Their numbers are good, but it'll be a good battle with Robbie Ray tomorrow against this young kid, Chris Bubik. 2 left-handers will be going at it tomorrow. But, Bob, thanks again for your time. Have a good rest of the day. And Bob mentioned Elliot Ramos, and, when you're talking about Elliot Ramos and what he's done, and I've always talked about the elevated fastball or the swing out of the zone with the breaking balls out of the zone. He's gotten so much better with that this year. He's watching the ball better, and I threw these numbers out earlier in that first segment, 21 for 53 in his last 15 games. And, I was wondering how he would do at the leadoff position. Boy, he is just showing he can do it. He can definitely do it today. Of course, the home run, the first pitch he had, and then the 8th inning coming in, and he was on NBC Bay Area as the player of the game. And he said he just wanted to see a ball, and he ended up getting a slider that a slurve came in from the inside part of the plate, a quarter into the zone, and he hit it right in that hole between shortstop and third. And he said, I just wanted to make good contact. I was just trying to get the barrel on the ball, and he did, and Patrick Bailey ended up scoring from second base for the game winner. Good job right there by Bob bringing up Elliot Ramos. He's having a great year, and maybe we'll see him in the All-Star game again. He was there last year. All right, let's go out to Jonah in Berkeley. Jonah, you're on the Extra Inning Post-Game Show with Bill Laskey. How are you doing, my friend?
Hi, I'm sorry I missed you during the off season. You were supposed to send me some stuff. But what I'm concerned about is I like that we have Justin Verlander, but he's getting older and he may have inconsistencies. He may have not done well today. I hope they can get him away from disability. In other words, get him back on track.
Well, he just had one bad game, Jonah. When you look at what he did, Arizona, 6 innings, 2 earned runs. The Cubs, 5 innings, 3 earned runs. Colorado, 6 1/3, 2 earned runs. I mean, this is what he's been doing consistently. Today, he just didn't have a good fastball. He couldn't find the zone. But overall, when you're looking at what he's done about 6 or 7 last games, this is his 10th start, he should have a couple wins by now. And he has been keeping the team in a position to win the game. Today was just one of those off days for him.
Well, that's why we take one game at a time, Bill.
I hear you right there, Jonah. One game at a time, one pitch at a time. You can go all the way back to Little League, right? Every out counts. You count outs instead of innings, right? You count 3 outs. Go out and get 3 outs. But the Giants did that today, and, boy, they just could not get a hit off Jeffrey Springs, going 20 up and 20 down after the home run by Ramos.
Well, you and I will sometime talk ball. How is Marty Lurie doing?
I have no idea, my friend. He's doing a show on Sunday mornings, and most likely you could probably catch him there. But I appreciate your call today, Jonah. Thank you again. Let's go out to Nick in Sacramento. Nick, you're on the Extra Inning Post-Game Show with Bill Laskey. How are you doing this afternoon?
Bill, after that win, that was nice. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, that last night game, man, that was just a thriller when you win 1-0 in the bottom of the 10th against, when you're looking at Mason Miller throwing 104, 103, 102. That was exciting for me as a pitcher watching that going down to that 3-2, bases loaded, 2 outs. It was fun.
What did he throw to Wilmer when he almost struck out? Was that a slurve, a slider? What was it?
Yeah, a hard slider. You know, he was throwing 102, 103, and then he threw around a 98-mile-an-hour slider that he just caught the barrel on to foul it off. And, you know, you're thinking about this. If you're hitting and you're seeing 102, 103, 104, and all of a sudden you see a breaking ball come that's almost 6 miles out shorter, and all of a sudden you got to get out there and knock it off, foul it off. And that was one of the best pitches that everybody talked about today in the media, that pitch right there, him fouling it off to beat him at that time. He was waiting for the fastball. And sure enough, he got it. And, you know, 9 pitches later, he gets a walk.
Yeah. Well, so I was calling mainly to say this was a series like that they needed to win, even if it was by 1 or 2 runs after Arizona beat them 2 of 3 by 1 run apiece. In those 2 games they lost. It was nice to see him come back. And this isn't the A's of last year where they weren't playing good ball. This A's team is pretty good. This is not...
It's a young team, you know. It's a young team, and you can tell they have energy. They've played good baseball. Mark Kotze's got to be proud of these guys. When you just go play Seattle at home, you lose 2 out of 3 to Seattle. The Yankees come in, you lose 2 out of 3 to the Yankees, but you're competitive with the 2 first-place teams in the East and the West. Then you go down and play the Dodgers. You win the first game 11-1, and the next 2 games didn't go right for them. But, you know, you're looking at a team, Nick, when you're 23, 22 years old, you know, you look at the first baseman. Nick Kurtz was just drafted last year. He's getting an opportunity to play, and I think this is the foundation of a good organization trying to get youth into big leagues to learn the game.
Exactly. Well, and just good on the Giants for, you know, just holding them back, and they need that going into Kansas City. I know that it should be a good series for the Giants, but like you said, you never get too far ahead of yourself because when you start looking 3 moves ahead, it's hard to get the move in front of you.
Yeah, it's always 1 game at a time, and as I always say, 1 inning at a time, 3 outs per inning. I mean, those are all the adjectives and things all coaches and head coaches always say. And, you know, you just want to finish out this homestand with a good 3-game series against the Royals. Royals are coming in here, Nick, at 26-22. So they have been winning well, but they've lost a few times here and recently, 2 out of 3 against Houston. They just lost 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals. So it'll be a good battle. The youth of the Royals, they have a pretty young team too, and of course Bobby Witt Jr. coming in here, the superstar. Of course, he's the face of Major League Baseball now, and he's having a pretty good year himself.
Yeah, no, agreed. Can I ask you one question?
Please do.
If you got a second.
Mm-hmm.
Ramos's base running, do you see that as an issue? Just like when he got picked off at third against, I think it was Chicago.
He got picked on now.
And then getting this little debacle that he had today, I don't know if it's concerning to you, but I look at it, it's a little concerning.
Well, you know, one thing, Nick, and when he got picked off at third, I think he was just being aggressive coming down the line and making that play up. If you remember, Bailey was up, the catcher picked it up, and they kind of slid the pitch on the outside corner. I don't know if that was a pick play they had already thought about or they had planned. But, man, that was just a bang-bang play at third. Today, they followed the throw. As you're rounding first base, you follow the throw, and if the throw goes through, you're off to second base. The ball got cut, and, of course, they picked him at first base. Those are just aggressive base running, you know, and you want to do that. It's the pick play, of course, to be a little more alert on. But overall, Elliot Ramos is a very good base runner.
Okay, just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, sure. No problem, Nick. Thanks for the call today, and hopefully you'll go out there. You're up in Sacramento. Maybe you can run up there and see from River Cat games. They've been playing good baseball at the AAA level, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick. And, you know, when we start looking at the Kansas City Royals, Jonathan India, remember him? He played with the Cincinnati Reds, hitting about 250. Bobby Witt Jr. is hitting over 300, about 310. Salvador Perez, the 35-year-old catcher. He's not playing a lot, but he is DHing. He's got 20 RBIs, 215. You know, you have I don't know if you remember these guys. Some of these guys have bounced around. Biggio, 30-year-old. Of course, he played with the Giants in AAA. He's on this team. They have a lot of guys that have been bouncing around, and they've now put him in the starting lineup. The other thing is the starting pitching. They have pretty good starting pitching. Tomorrow, I talked about Chris Bubik, 27-year-old lefty at 4-2 with a 1.6. And you'll remember this name, Michael Lorenzen. He was pitching with the Reds for many years. He pitched with the Padres. He's pitching on Tuesday. And, of course, we'll see Hayden Birdsong get his first start of the year on Tuesday. Robbie Ray will pitch on Monday. All right, let's go out to Oakland and talk to Daryl. Daryl, you're on the Extra Inning Postgame Show with Bill Laskey. Hope you're well, my friend. How you been?
Hey, I'm doing good, Bill. Hanging in there. I saw the game yesterday. I went to the game. I was sitting in section 240. It was out by the end, down the third base line on the I think it's the club level, and Giants weren't hitting the ball very much yesterday, but a lot of ground balls yesterday, and the A's are actually pretty good. They've been pitching. They pitched really well against the Giants.
Yeah, both games. You know, when you're looking at yesterday's game and today's game, both games. Yesterday, after 9 innings, both teams only had 5 hits. Nobody scored. Today, look what Jeffrey Springs did, 20 up, 20 down after he gives up a home run. These guys are young pitching staff, too, and their bullpen is solid.
Yeah, they were impressive. And then, but I do want to say, I know Verlander had a horrible day today. I mean, at 5 walks in 4 innings, you know, that's pretty hard. But, I mean, considering, you know, he only gave up 2 runs, you know, I still got to give him credit for just only giving up 2 runs. You know,
yeah, both of those runs, if you remember, he got the first 2 guys out that inning. Both, you know, ground balls to second. Arias got the double just over Ramos's head in left center field. And then he walks the next 2 guys. And it was just a tough time at that time. And he was getting behind hitters, 2-0, 3-0. And then you saw J.P. Martinez go out there. You saw Spencer Bivens starting to warm up. But they left him to pitch Lawrence against Lawrence Butler. And the first pitch he saw, he got that base hit to right center field. He ended up coming back and got Jacob Wilson on a ground ball to end the inning. But the damage was done. He gave up those 2 runs. I don't think he was going to go any further than that, even if he would have got out of the game at that time. He had thrown over 80 pitches in 4 innings. So he struggled with command today. He struggled with velocity. Those things are going to happen when you're 42 years old, and I'm not blaming the age here. That's his 10th start. He just didn't have it today.
So do you think they should go to like a 6-man rotation?
No, they won't do anything like that. They kind of switched it with Jordan Hicks now in the bullpen. Hayden Birdsong is now in. If there is any kind of change, you got Kyle Harrison in the bullpen, and Carson Wisenhunt in AAA has just been phenomenal down there. Through another 7-inning game today, a lot of strikeouts, not a lot of walks. A young pitcher that's really been a big stud for them. Top 5 prospect. Don't know if they would dip into the AAA level yet. Of course, like I said, Kyle Harrison would probably be the next guy up. But I don't think they're going to do anything. They're going to keep this rotation. I made the change with Jordan Hicks. Let's see what Hayden Birdsong does Tuesday. And right now, the Giants can't do much different. They're 28-19, and you can't complain about that.
Oh, they're playing well. They fought. It was hard watching that losing streak, but other than that, they've been playing very well.
Yep, that was last weekend in Minnesota. They just couldn't score. You know, losing both games 2-1, and then they lost that last one on the road. And today and this weekend, they battled back against the Athletics and swept the Athletics. And a good positive 3 games to go into this Royal 3-game series. But thanks for the call, Daryl. Appreciate your time. All right, we're going to take a quick call. Got a lot of calls on hold. We'll take a quick break right here. Giants win 3-2. They sweep the Athletics, and we'll get back to more calls, but we'll take a quick break right here on the Extra Inning Postgame Show on The Leader.
From the mound to the mic, this is KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Hear him by saying to your smart speaker, play KNBR.
And the pitch. Swings away, a base hit to center field. So Wade will trot across the plate. Patrick Bailey not laying down a bunt, not this time. Jumps on the first pitch and shoots it right through the middle, right past Ferguson. Hard low liner to hit the ground either on the mound or near, and right through the drawn-in infield. So just like that, the Giants have tied the game.
All right, welcome back to a Sunday fun day as the Giants sweep the Athletics today, 3-2, coming back with 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. You just heard John Miller talking about the pinch hit, base hit by Patrick Bailey to drive in Lamont Wade Jr., who ended up pinch hitting, hit a triple. And the 2 guys that we've been talking about who's been struggling, confidence builder, no question about that. And they both did very well pinch hitting today. And the Giants end up pulling out a 3-2 win, sweeping the Athletics. First time they swept them since 2015. So a good 3-game set. Now, now the Kansas City Royals come to town. Kansas City Royals are 26-22. Looking at their statistics, a lot of even out here. They're hitting 240 as a team. The Giants are hitting 238. Kansas City's got 30 home runs. The Giants have 49. On the pitching side, Kansas City has a 3.11 earned run average. They're second in Major League Baseball. The Giants are 7th with a 3.39 earned run average. Both teams, one has 14 saves. That's the Royals. 12 saves for the Giants, make that 13 after today. Ryan Walker getting his 8th save. And defensive-wise, I think the Giants have really played well ever since the road trip today. Fielding ground balls left and right, and you had Christopher Koss playing second base. He had some really solid plays. A couple ground balls into short right field that he picked, got up and through. Line drive that he caught. And Willie Adames is playing some solid shortstop, having a couple balls from the bare hand side and then the backhand side and the balls up the middle. Some good, solid defense as the San Francisco Giants are now 28-19. A couple good guests coming up later in the show. Kyle Harrison, of course, he's now in the big leagues pitching out of the bullpen. We remember him last year as a starter. He was 7-7 last year. Had some arm issues over the winter. Ended up getting some rehab, throwing the ball now in the mid-90s. I sat down with him earlier in the week, and we talked about how he transfers from being a starting pitcher into the bullpen, some of the mental sides, some of the physical sides, and how he warms up. That's a great little interview later in the show. And then I sat down with Jim Cott. Of course, he's in a Hall of Fame, 3-time All-Star. Won the World Series in 1982 at the St. Louis Cardinals. And this is the number that I love. 16 times he won the Gold Glove. He was a fabulous, fabulous defensive pitcher. So you'll hear those interviews later on. But let's get back to the phone lines, 808 KNBR if you want to get on the line. Let's go to Steve in Bend, Oregon. Steve, you're on Extra Inning Postgame Show on a Sunday. The Giants sweep the Athletics. You got to like that.
Yeah, how about that? Wouldn't that something? Ironically,
too.
The last time the Giants beat the A's in the sweep, ironically, was when Jared Parker hit those 3 home runs back in 2015.
Oakland Coliseum, man. Boy, he was mashing the ball that day.
And what happened to him? Anyway, that's another story.
Bye-bye.
Exactly.
Retired. He's retired.
So, hey, I want to ask you, last night, Flores, and you had a guest on that talked about it, taking that 2-2 slider, Steve Cronin, yeah, great call. Taking that 2-2 slider was almost as dramatic as that grand slam.
Yeah,
I don't know how.
Yeah, today, Kipe and Crick were talking about that on the pregame show, and Kipe had mentioned that at bat he felt was better than the 3 home runs on Friday. I just think it was just so dramatic yesterday, and how much he relied on that guy and a 3-2 count going against one of the best relievers in baseball.
Oh, unbelievable. And I don't know any of the batter. And certainly if Melvin didn't pinch run, I mean, he could have pinch run Flores the inning before, and there's no way Koss wouldn't have swung at that, right? There's no way.
Great. That's a great call right there. And, I never thought about that because he did have an opportunity to pinch run for him, and he didn't do it. That was when he got a walk in the 8th inning. And it was the base hit by Fitzgerald and then the strikeout by Yastrzemski, and they threw out Fitzgerald at second. It was a strikeout, throw him out, and then Flores ended up getting a walk. But you're totally right. He could have pinch run him there to see if somebody was going to steal, but he didn't, and turned out with a 9-pitch at bat. How about 9 pitches in that? That was fun.
That was unbelievable. Meanwhile, again, the Dodgers have let go Austin Barnes. A thorn in the side of the Giants. You think the Giants
Chris Taylor. How about this one? How about Chris Taylor too? Yeah.
The missing chipmunk. Yeah. So do you think that Sorry. Do you think the Giants would pick up Austin Barnes to spell?
I don't know. He's an older player, mid-30s. He really hasn't done much. He's really been the guy that caught Clayton Kershaw so much. I just think they want to go younger there. He's always been the backup catcher. I just don't think the Giants would jump into that. I mean, you just picked up, Sam Huff off waivers from Texas. You got to give the kid some time to play. Defensively, I think he's fine. Offensively, he slumps. Doesn't really get good contact today. It bugged me. A 3-0 count he was, and he didn't even swing. And the next 3 pitches, he ended up striking out, and I just didn't understand the theory behind it. But this is some things that he has to get better at.
Yeah, trial by fire. Mm-hmm. Something happened last night, Giants in the Dodger game. Kenley Jansen. Now, this has happened quite often to avoid sign stealing. So you got a runner on second, and Jansen purposely balked to get the guy to third. Now, this has happened before. Have you ever heard of something like that happening?
It has.
An intentional balk?
He does it. The biggest things, I think he just worries about them tipping pitches. I think that's one thing he does, and he's done that many times. He did it with the Dodgers. Yeah. He did it with the Red Sox, and there's something about relievers that just don't want those runners on second base. I think it's all about location and tipping pitches. I really do.
But he's got such a good cutter, it wouldn't matter. Even if they know it's cutting. They know it's coming.
It's just sometimes they just feel, the psychology theory. Does he know my pitch coming? Does he know where the location's coming? You saw that in the Padres series where Bailey was doing it. I can't remember the starting pitcher, and he did it, and he got caught. And the pitcher turned around after he punched him out. They came out and changed signs, and he punched him out, and he screamed back at Bailey because Bailey was grabbing his jersey on a fastball and looking the other way in a breaking ball or something to that nature. There's always gameplay. There's always that stuff in the middle of a game. And hitters, some of them like it, but some of them don't like it either. Yeah.
And then my last point is Ramos didn't start last year, but I think if he continues on, he's a fixture. He's a fixture in left field. I think if he starts next year, will that break the drought of
probably will.
Starters in left field?
Yeah, I think, I'm hearing rumors that the Giants are trying to sign him a long-term contract, and I think that's a good move. A young player as he is, and he's a solid player. He's a great guy in the clubhouse, of course, with the Latin players as well as just being that action kind of guy that, hey, we're going to play today. I want that, that adrenaline rush that he gives you. Yeah. And I think it would be a good move if the Giants did something like that for him.
Yeah, same here. Bill, have a great show, man. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Steve, thanks again. Great comments today, buddy. Good talking to you also, but have a good rest of the day. Let's go to Chris in San Jose. Chris, you're on the Extra Inning post-game show on a Sunday with Bill Laskey. What do you got going for me today?
Well, Bill, thanks for taking the call. I really like this team, and I want to give a shout-out to the front office. Buster Posey, Zach Manassian. Obviously the coaching staff, Pat Burrell and of course Bob Melvin. But you saw this in spring training. This is a good baseball team. They can win gritty. They've got a lot of gritty ball players. They've got some good athletes. They've got some power. They've got some speed and some base running. They got the best, probably the best defensive third baseman in the game in Chapman. Jung-Hoo Lee looks like he's on his way to becoming one of the better center fielders in the game. I can't recall the last time the Giants had this many legitimate threats in the lineup. When you talk about Chapman, Ramos, Willie Flores is having a career year. Adames is coming around. Jung-Hoo Lee is a legitimate guy. Mike Yastrzemski is a gritty baseball player with a high baseball IQ. Again, Pat Bailey, probably one of the better defensive catchers in the game. I don't look at the metrics that much, but these guys are passing the eyeball test for me. And I think that the way that this roster's built, I'm excited about Encarnacion coming back and shoring up some power at first base and DH. And I'm really excited about the pitching depth, with Wisenhunt and Kyle Harrison. But, this team is a legitimate contender. And
Chris, the way you explain that, and I'll take it back to building a puzzle. you know, when you're doing puzzle pieces and you're trying to fit pieces into where it works and where it doesn't work. And I think that's what Buster Posey did when he took over the team. He looked at this puzzle of what he had and what he needed. And he went out and got Willie Adames because they needed a shortstop. Luciano wasn't that guy. Fitzgerald wasn't that guy. And I think that's what he first said. I got to get a guy up the middle. Of course, Crawford's retired. That was the guy he watched play, and Crawford was such a big part of the middle of that diamond, and Willie Adames has fit that. Matt Chapman, of course, you had to go get him signed for a few years after last year, and then he started building things. Jung-Hoo Lee was injured last year. We really didn't know what he had in his back pocket. We didn't know how good of a player he was. He's slumping a little bit on the offensive side, but his defense, like you said, he shines in center field. He kept Yastrzemski. He kept Wade. He kept a couple guys just to give them another opportunity because I think he felt that these guys could play with good instruction. He brought Damon Minor up from AAA, who's a really good hitting coach, and he had a lot of these young guys through AAA. I think what Buster did is you're saying all these pieces you talked about are fitting a puzzle, and now that puzzle's starting to get better, the confidence building, and it's starting to turn into a one good team.
No, I totally agree with you. And, you know, I mean, Buster Posey, you know, obviously, you know, he's a Hall of Famer and, you know, and he knows what he's doing, but this is still his first year, you know, being president of baseball operations and, you know, to have this team come out of the box. And again, we saw it in spring training that, you know, it looked like they had something here. And, you know, I'm excited about the trade deadline because I think there's going to be some opportunities to, you know, to get some more depth and maybe get a little bit more power. And you got to be excited about how Kyle Harrison's throwing the ball and of course what Carson Wisenhunt is doing in the minor leagues. And, you know, I'm really excited to see this team play the Dodgers. Because
we'll match up in June for that one, but that'll be a fun one. And of course, the Padres. We'll see the Padres in a 4-game series coming up too. But you know, you said something about Kyle Harrison. You'll hear my interview with him later in the show, and we talked about velocity. We talked about secondary pitches. We talked about mechanics, and these are all things that he was stumbling around last year at the end. You know, he had a couple minor injuries, and he said, "I just didn't feel comfortable. I just didn't feel it myself." And he went back to the drawing board. He ended up getting a little PT in the winter. He started working out harder. Then he got sick in spring training, and I think that was a little downfall. I think he really wanted to try to make this team. But in the long run, I think it was good that he didn't because he went down to AAA, had about 6 or 7 starts, and I asked him in his interview how many games it took him to finally let loose. Finally, that arm took over. And he said it was about the 4th or 5th game where it was a real hot and humid day in Sacramento. And he says, I don't know what the hell happened. When I was warming up, all of a sudden it just started popping the glove. And he says, ever since then, man, I got my velocity back. And that had to make him feel so much better of working so hard to get that back. And Chris, when you hear that from a young kid like that, man, it's energizing.
No, totally. I mean, this game more than any other game is about confidence, and it's about, you know, the coaching staff and your teammates and, you know, your instructors, you know, having confidence in you. But, you know, you gotta, you know, sometimes you gotta find it within yourself, and when you do, it's a good feeling, and you just gotta ride it. You know, I also wanted to talk about Landon Roop. I mean, you know, anytime we get somebody from North Carolina. And I think he's a North Carolinian, but it just seems to work out. It seems to work out. You know, these pitchers that come from the mountains of North Carolina seem to do pretty well for the Giants.
You're absolutely right too. And boy, yesterday I thought that was one of the better games he threw yesterday. He was consistent, getting in the strike zone. Patrick Bailey was catching him. I thought that was a big plus for him to have that. And I want to see him throw more than just a curveball and a sinker. I think if he develops that cross-seam fastball like you see Logan Webb doing, Logan Webb's bringing that as an elevated fastball. I think Landon Roop wants to try to do that. You know, yesterday 40 sinkers, 33 curveballs, but then he started throwing the changeup a little bit more, something from spring training, like you had talked about how these guys worked at different things in spring training, and we'll see if it works. But yesterday, you know what? 6 shutout innings, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you know, and you got to credit, you know, Pat Bailey there. You know, he's always, you know, handled the pitching staff and really knows what he's doing in terms of, you know, knowing these pitchers, what their strengths are, how to improve maybe some of their, their weaknesses or their deficiencies. But, I know Pat Bailey, he's struggling with the bat a little bit, but his defense and the way that he handles these pitchers and the way that he calls the game, that has not slumped at all.
Exactly. And you can't shy away from that, because that's a big, big plus, especially the mental side, throwing again with these pitchers coming out of the bullpen. If you can think about it, Chris, all the velocities, all the different arm angles, and all the different things he's reading on his little pad he puts in there about what these hitters can hit and what they don't hit. I mean, it's a mental game most of the time as a catcher also.
I agree, and you look at your president of baseball operations. The guy's a Hall of Famer, and he's.
Hey, don't forget about that manager, Bob Melvin. He was a teammate of mine also, and he was a damn good catcher too.
Oh yeah, damn good catcher. Caught no hitters. Was able to handle a pitching staff, and caught all those wild horses from North Carolina. With Madison Bumgarner and all those
That's
guys.
Great.
But I think he is really the key and the real backbone, to this team and to the pitching staff.
And I think the players understand that too. They know that he was a grinder. They knew what he did in his career, and it's only going to get better. He's going to come down in that locker room and talk to him. Most likely he has a lot already, and that's what you want. You want to hear about him. You want to talk to him about different things, because that's the plus. That's the plus about being that player.
You also don't want to let him down. Not only do you want to go through a brick wall for him, but you don't want to let Buster Posey down. It just looks like that's how they all feel. They all want to be at their best all the time, because they know that Buster has brought back the Giant way. Buster Ball is a legitimate, that is the right way to play the game. And they're all taking their cues from him right now.
Chris, I'll leave you with this. Landon Roop's hometown, Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. There you go, my friend. But great call today. Great conversation about the Giants. I appreciate your time and all your input today. Have a great rest of the day. I appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, come back with some more phone calls. I'm Bill Laskey, the big right-hander, and we're going to have more right here on the Extra Inning Postgame Show on the Sports Leader. We'll take a break.
This is KNBR Extra Innings with former Giants right-hander Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Hear him on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR. Play KNBR.
And Jeffrey Springs, the left-hander, into his windup. The pitch to Elliot Ramos, and a shot into deep left center toward 399, way back there. Adios! Pelota! It made it into the Giants bullpen, just to the right of the 399 marker. And on the first pitch, Elliot Ramos puts the Giants ahead 1-0.
Back on the Extra Inning post-game show with Bill Laskey on a Sunday afternoon. Boy, Beta Breakers. Boy, if anybody ran to Beta Breakers, I'd love to hear it. What a beautiful morning to run, boy. Woo. It was gorgeous out today. And the afternoon the wind was a little cold, boy. The wind was blowing yesterday. Today, bound out a little bit. Good weather ahead for this three-game series against the Royals. It'll be a good series. The Royals are coming in 26-22. The Giants are now 28-19. Before they hit the road trip next week, they go to Washington for 3, Detroit for 3, and then they finish out 2 weekends with the Miami Marlins. So a 9-game road trip coming up for the Giants after they play the Kansas City Royals for 3. All right, let's finish up on these phone calls. Let's go to Todd in Fresno. Todd, you're on the Extra Inning postgame show on a beautiful Sunday. Giants sweep the Athletics. What'd you think of the series?
Happy for them. I really am. Your last caller, very optimistic, and I love the Giants. I always have. And I just don't see sustainability. What if the Giants as a team were hitting 274? What would their record be?
Oh, that'd probably double the wins right there. I tell you what, 28 wins. Maybe you're adding another 5 or 6 wins, but they've been playing good baseball. And you go back to when they won 10, 12, and 14. It was pitching and defense. And I tell you, Todd, you cannot beat this bullpen. They have been pitching so consistently for the first 47 games.
I 100%. But you are not going to be 22nd in the league in hitting and sustain a 162-game schedule and go in against the – I mean, they went against the Padres, and the Padres lit them up the last time they played them.
Good pitching, too. Both those pitchers threw well against them. They couldn't hit. And you're right. That's what's gonna take a big mark for this Giants team to go into some of these teams that are winning and face some of their aces and see if they can beat them. So far, they've had trouble with it. Same thing in Minnesota last week. Remember that? 2 good games, and both those pitchers threw very well against them.
No, absolutely, and that's my concern. I've listened to Will Clark talk, and this is the thing that I scratch my head. You've got 2 of the greatest hitters that played in the game, in Barry Bonds and Will Clark. They should be adopting a way of hitting that those guys knew how to put the ball in play. They knew how to hit, and
yeah.
You're a catcher hitting 188, and I love Matt Chapman, but you can't tell me that guy's not a good enough athlete to hit better. He's never hit 290 in his career.
Hitting 225 right now, and you're absolutely right. When you're looking at batting averages, a lot of these batting averages even go, Willie Adames at 230. Yastrzemski's at 280. Ramos is the one, of course, is just drilling the ball. He's just, those last 15 games when you're looking at what he did, 21 for 53. But you need to get some other guys like this hot, and I think that's the big one.
No, well, and I think Adames will. I do. My thing is that I had a friend of mine that was an agent, and he said, look, the players are going to do what they're going to get paid for. And what happened was baseball decided that launch angle and swinging up and strikeouts don't matter and batting average doesn't matter. Well, we're still feeling the hangover of batting average doesn't matter. I mean, when you hit 220,
you're absolutely right. You're 100% right. And you know what? Players don't even think that way either. Players aren't looking at batting averages. They're not worried about them because when they start looking at them, they're 230, 240. Several of them are under 200, and you're absolutely right there too.
Yeah, and I just want to see him become a good team. And I think when we start valuing batting average again, the OPS goes up, the on-base percentage, all those things they value, those will all go up because guys are making contact and hitting. To see a bunch of strikeouts, and that's just the thing that I worry about. I'm happy they're where they're at, but I just sit there and look at it. I go, for a 162-game season, are you going to be able to sustain winning when it gets into dog days and you're still hitting 225 as a team? You know,
I'm right there, and I think that's going to be a lot of adjustments when you're going down the road, especially when they go on the road. Washington, Detroit's having a great year. They got some great pitching, and then you go into Miami. You should be able to win a couple of those series and go head-to-head against the Tigers in Detroit. But, we'll just find out. Kansas City with this Brubeck guy coming in, he's a tough pitcher, 1.66 against a lefty, and we know the Giants are only 4-10 against left-handed starters.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, and then the great thing that we get to see is you get to see a player like Bobby Witt Jr. come in, which is
superstar. Yeah, that'll be fun. Well. Plays good shortstop and hits the ball well, hitting over 300. And, we'll just see how the Giants take on to this Royal team. And they got to score more runs. You're absolutely right there, and we'll just see if the offense can get a spark from this 3-game homestand against the Athletics when they swept them. But, you looked at that Arizona series too, and, if they had any good starting pitching, they could have won 2 out of 3. They didn't. They ended up getting, 17 or 14 runs in 2 games. They only won 1. But I thought this was a gritty 3-game series, Todd, and it was really good pitching and good defense that won these games.
No, I agree. I wish I knew more of the A's players. Never heard of half.
You will. These guys are going to be good down the road. There are a lot of young talent over there, and I think that's their foundation. And, I watch them. I've watched them in Sacramento. They have a hard time winning in Sacramento. They're only 8-13 there. The ball just flies out of that ballpark. And years back, I used to do TV for the River Cats, and come June and July, a pop-up is just blasted out, kind of like the Colorado Rocky field. But it's just, Coors Field is just like Sacramento, and I hate to see it, but boy, there's going to be some big numbers coming to summertime there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyway, thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
Todd, thanks for the call. Thanks for your time on a Sunday. Appreciate it. Let's go to Vacaville and talk to Jeff. Jeff, you're on Extra Inning Post-Game Show on a Sunday. Giants are 28-19, a real nice homestand where they're 4-2 so far with 3 left.
Oh, yeah. Great series. It's why I don't want to be a Buster Posey downer, but I want to talk about roster construction a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that a lot of the players that are performing well, and Buster Posey I think, has set the tone, and also it's night and day between this year and like 24 and 23 and 22. It's great coming from behind, and guys are really playing well when they have to. But a lot of players that are playing well were acquired by Farhan, and Bobby Evans, and also
right. A
Brian
few of them
Davey,
are.
for that matter.
I would say so too. And really, when you look at what Buster has, Verlander and Willie Adames are the only 2 that he has really picked up. Of course, Sam Huff and a couple guys like that. But I think you're going to see a little bit more of roster construction. I want to see what he's going to do around trade deadline, and we'll see what happens with Encarnacion coming back and him hitting a little more for power and for average. But, you're totally right in how the roster is built and what he's done so far, and he really has added some good pieces, but he's also giving opportunity for Yastrzemski, Flores, Wade Jr. These guys have to come better. They have to get better and do it consistently, and I think that's what we're waiting for.
But yeah, and there's a great article on the Athletic by Grant Frisbee. He's from I think it's from May 9th or May 10th, and it talks about who was acquired. It's kind of like a simple thing to say, like, well, I love Buster. I do. I love Buster. I love what they're doing, but I have to acknowledge what happened before. So anyway, we appreciate your work, Bill.
Yeah, I appreciate your call too, and some of the points you brought up, I think it is right. Farhan did bring some players back. He signed Jung-Hoo Lee, and you got to go even farther back when you talked about Bobby Evans bringing Elliot Ramos and giving Yastrzemski a chance when he was buried with the Orioles. But when you give them opportunities like that, Jeff, some of them make it and some of them don't. But you have to give them a little rope. You have to give them more than 1 or 2 years to see what they can do in longevity. And I think that's what Buster's building this team with these 26 players. You haven't seen too many guys be optioned out. He hasn't given up on anybody. And I think that's the way that he always wanted to be. And that's where those teams, that's how they won, with consistency, confidence, and building within.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think that Jung-Hoo Lee, or Lee Jung-Hung, his signing was like really risky, and it's been really wonderful.
So,
I do too. I agree with
go
you.
Giants.
Yep, I appreciate your call. Thanks so much for your time on a Sunday. All right, let's go to Andrea, and she is in Berkeley. My little lady friend, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Bill. How are you?
Doing good. A lot of great calls today. A lot of good energy, of course. So by a sweep on a Sunday fun day, you love that.
We got not only did we get a Sunday fun day, Bill, we got a house sweep it is. How about that?
How about that? Since 2015, they swept them. And that was a great call when Parker hit the 3 home runs at Oakland Coliseum. That was a fun game back then.
Yeah, it's just like time has just flown by, and it's just like really, there's always a rivalry when the two teams get together, no matter where they are currently. So that was a good game, and not to be a Debbie Downer, but we do have to manage our expectations with Justin Verlander. He's born February 20th, 1983. I posted a podcast I did with a colleague several months ago before the season even started about Saturn in Pisces to his Mars, which is a crucial planet for an athlete whose energy, assertion, aggression. So Saturn to Mars can be less energy, less vitality. And as you and everyone else knows, after the game, he said he wasn't quite feeling right. He wasn't feeling well. He actually admitted it, which as an athlete, is kind of a big deal. And, it's a little low energy and depressing. But the main thing is, it rules the skeletal system, bones, knees, teeth, joints, back. So it'll be interesting.
And I think that's kind of what he was kind of saying in the post game. He just didn't have the velocity on this fastball today. It was only 91, 92. He was probably 94 consistently for a while. Those things are going to happen. We all get up, Andrea. Some days you're limping. Some days the back's stiff, the arm's sore. And it just he was out there competing today, and I think that's what Giants fans want to see out of him. Sure, the age is always going to come up. It's always going to creep up on his discussion. But I just look at him, and he was competing today. He didn't have his good stuff. He yanked the fastball so many times to the left side of the batter's box, and he just couldn't get his mechanics straight, and that's why he walked 5 guys. He still hung in there. But then you got to look at that bullpen, Andrea. This bullpen picked him up with nice 5 innings of shutout ball.
Yes, so that was good. The bullpen came through, and, there was, he got, I think, a no decision, so he didn't get a loss. But, 10 starts without a win, so delay, not denial. So let's hope that Saturn eventually loosens its grip. And, that was still nice to see the sweep and, the Bay Bridge. Well, it used to be the Bay Bridge, just to see that Sunday Fun Day happen. And I'm actually watching the Subway Series now with the Yankees and the Mets.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one tonight. And they'll go up and play the Sacramento Athletics around 4th of July. That's the next 3-game series. So we'll see how that rolls. But, Andrea, thanks again for the call. Thanks for holding on. It's always a pleasure to hear you on Sunday Fun Days because you and I started that years ago, and it's always a fun time talking to you.
Yes, thanks, Bill. Thanks for a great weekend of shows.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, and have a good rest of the Sunday. Coming up next, we talk to the graduate of De La Salle High School, the big left-hander, number 45, Kyle Harrison. Sat down with him talking about being back into big leagues and how he's energized coming out of the bullpen. So, you know what? It's a quick little interview, but I was so happy to catch up with Kyle. Became friends with him a couple years ago and sat down with him and just kind of figuring out where he is mentally and physically, and that's going to come up next right here on the Extra Inning Post-Game Show, and we'll bring it to you right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey keeps the postgame rolling live right here.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
On KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM. The sports leader.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning Postgame Show with Bill Laskey. My guest graduated from De La Salle High School. He was a 2020 draft pick and signed with the San Francisco Giants. Let's bring in number 45, Kyle Harrison. Kyle, how are you?
Doing great. Beautiful day in San Francisco, and good to talk to you again, Bill.
Well, it's great to have you back in the big leagues. Your first couple appearances, you pitched at Wrigley Field in a crazy extra inning game against the Cubs. Went 1 inning, 2 strikeouts. Then you ended up pitching 2 innings at Target Field against the Minnesota Twins. Another 2 innings, 3 strikeouts. How do you feel being back in the big leagues? Mechanics, velocity, sure looks like the old Kyle Harrison I know.
Yeah. You know, I think first and foremost, it's good to be back up here and good to be healthy and ready to go, man. I think that's kind of been the struggle for me the past year. It's that I haven't been feeling my best and finally feel like I'm myself out there again, you know, and that's something I've been trying to work on this whole off season, to get the shoulder right and, you know, implement a good routine so I can be ready to have success.
Well, Kyle, I'm going to bring you back to August 22nd, 2023. So far away, right? So far, so long ago, your MLB debut, 22 years old. You were pitching against the Philadelphia Phillies. Your parents are there. Your family was there. Tell me the process of that day, because, you know, we always remember it, but tell me how you felt going to the bullpen, and then next thing you know, you were on the mound.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. The nerves were going and the adrenaline was there. I mean, it was had my family out there with me all the way in Philly, but I debuted out in Philly, so that was quite the experience as well with those fans. They were hard on me, and it was just a fun experience to kind of soak it in, in the bullpen, getting yelled at, and then ultimately going out there and facing guys that you've seen, growing up your whole life. So it was just a cool kind of full circle. And as soon as I got that first punchy, I was like, you know what, I belong here. I could do this,
And that was against Trey Turner. That was in the first inning. That had to be exciting. And, when you get out there and you're against the visiting audience or the fans, like you say, of course, in Philadelphia, they're screaming at you from the first pitch you throw in the warm-ups and the bullpen.
Oh, yeah.
How did you settle down? How did you get your nerves settled?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question. I'd say, I kind of go back to my experience, just throughout the minor leagues. And every time you touch that mound, it ultimately turns into the same game. And you just kind of have this tunnel vision, I want to say, no, but, like I said, it's like the fans, you feel everything else prior to the pitch, so it's like the more and more I try and think about, how can I control my process? How can I go out there and just be the best version of myself? Stop worrying about all the other stuff. And that's kind of just, it takes some time to go through, but that's kind of the biggest thing that I've tried to do.
That voice you hear on the Extra Inning post-game show is Kyle Harrison. So 2024, you get through 24 starts, you're 7-7, 4-point, just a little bit over a 4-point earned run average, 118 strikeouts, 42 walks, a very solid year. When you went home that year, a couple minor injuries, how did you assess your year when you sat back?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to end that year being healthy for sure. That's kind of the main area I kind of stepped at, and got shut down kind of that last month of the season, and was battling kind of a shoulder injury going through the prior 2 months of that. And yeah, man, I just really wanted to take a step back and look at, my routine, what I was doing to help my shoulder, going to get immediate care and treatment for it, figuring out what the problem was, to keep me on the field, because you want to be out there as much as you can. And so I really just took a step back and assessed what I needed to do, and ultimately it took me a little too much time. I was a little kind of hurt me going into spring training, wasn't the best version of myself, but then I got down to Sacramento and was able to kind of take my time and figure things out, get stronger. And yeah, man, so that's kind of what I just took a step back and looked bigger picture for sure.
And it definitely helped you because, as you said, you came into 2025, you had an illness in spring training, the velocity wasn't up. You ended up going to Sacramento. You had 6 starts in Sacramento, 1-0, 26 innings pitched, 38 strikeouts, 8 walks. 6 starts. And when you start looking back at 1 inning, 2 innings, 3 innings, 4 innings, how many starts did it start clicking in for you? How many did it take?
Yeah, I'd say probably around 4 or 5. By the time that 5th one came around, I was feeling healthy, body was moving great, and velo was starting to tick up, and was able to hold it longer in the outings. And just felt like I was myself out there again. I could pitch and have fun and pain free. That's kind of what I was shooting for.
Well, everybody talks about velocity. As a pitcher, I like talking about your secondary pitches and the breaking ball sharp again, staying on top of it. Another pitch that you were trying to get better at also?
Definitely. And one that, I took a step back and just realized that, the harder I throw, I think the more success I've had with it. And I know last year it was kind of slower, and ultimately that's because of the shoulder, looking back on it. But now I'm throwing it harder and throwing it everything with conviction, as well as the changeup. So, no, man, I'm excited to keep getting the work here and keep getting better.
Kyle Harrison joining me for a few more minutes on the Extra Inning post-game show. I had a couple good interviews with J.P. Martinez. He was talking about throwing strikes, getting that 1-0-1 count in so you could use other pitches. And this is what you did in Sacramento, 8 walks. You've reduced the walks. This is something that you're generating, as long as all the other pitchers too. Nothing really hard to think about, but when you're out there, the focus is on that first pitch a little more.
Definitely, especially last year. I know my success rate on the first pitch strikes weren't the best, and it's something that, I don't want to say out too loud because I know some hitters might be listening, you never know. But that's something that I'm definitely trying to strive for this year because, the stats and everything else will tell you that, if you get ahead 0-1, you're in the driver's seat.
Well, Kyle, you're out of the bullpen, a different mental approach, how you warm up, how you get ready to come in the game. I like what Bob Melvin and J.P. Martinez is doing with you and Hayden Birdsong, giving you clean innings, a little different approach. Have you adjusted to the warm-up factor yet?
I think it's tough to say. I think I have, that's the part of me that'll say I have, but I know it is a little bit different of a process, just kind of not knowing when you're going, always kind of be moving around, that's really the biggest adjustment I'd say, it's kind of just preparing to, be prepared for the unexpected, and then, once you get out there, it's the same thing, just go and attack and go and compete. It's what I love to do. So, no, man, it's exciting, and it's definitely a different perspective, warming up down there and seeing the game from that side of it.
The other thing, Kyle, is Garvin Alston telling you what order's coming up, who you have to look out for. I know you have gone through your scouting reports before the game. That's something else you got to prepare for.
Oh, 100%. And all the little stops, if the other pitchers got the other team's got another guy warming up, or, mound visits, to give you extra time. So, I didn't really think of it that much, being a starter. You kind of neglect all those little situations, but now that I'm in it, it's real and it's crazy. Things move fast.
Well, things are moving fast. The San Francisco Giants need you. I appreciate your time today, Kyle, and it's always great seeing you on that bump.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me out today. Always great.
Thanks,
talking
Kyle.
with you.
Kyle, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. That was Kyle Harrison on the Extra Inning Post Game Show. More coming up right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
Bill is back.
Fired up, bringing it, all excited.
This is KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Listen on your Google Home smart speaker by saying play KNBR.
With a runner at second or third or both. There's a swing, line drive in the right field, coming in and diving to make the catch is Matos. The headlong, full-time layout, and he caught it, and the ball started slicing away from him a little bit. He made the dive, and at the last moment, he had to reach out to his left and caught it just inches above the Oracle Park turf. Nice play.
All right, back on the Extra Inning post-game show on a Sunday afternoon. A beautiful day. I hope you're out there enjoying it. I know Giants fans are enjoying it as the San Francisco Giants swept the Sacramento Athletics. They beat them 3 straight games. First time they swept them since 2015 on 3 really good games. If you remember back on Friday, oh boy, Wilmer Flores hitting 3 home runs, a grand slam in the 3rd inning, a 3-run home run in the 6th inning, and then a solo shot in the 8th inning. He goes 3 for 5 with 8 RBIs. But also on the other side, Logan Webb pitched a gem that day. He went 8 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run. Camilo Duvall ended up coming in for 1 inning and striking out the side. Logan Webb got his 5th win. He was 5-3. And then yesterday, a pitching gem on a Saturday night. It was just awesome. I really enjoyed it. Of course, I'm an ex-pitcher. You would think that. Landon Roop goes 6. Rodriguez, Rogers, Walker, and Duvall all go 1. And the San Francisco Giants winning 1-0 in the bottom of the 10th inning, bases loaded on a 9-pitch at bat. Wilmer Flores faced Mason Miller to get that walk, and the Giants win 1-0, and it goes into today. And a great job for the San Francisco Giants in this game. Of course, Elliot Ramos led off the bottom of the 1st inning with a home run. Justin Verlander gave up a couple runs in the 4th inning. The bullpen comes in for 5 innings, only giving up 1 hit, 3 strikeouts. And in the bottom of the 8th inning, Lamont Wade Jr. leads off with a 2-2 fastball, hits a triple out to right center field as a pinch hitter. Patrick Bailey with the infield in. First pitch he sees, gets a base hit off of Tyler Ferguson, and the Giants tie the game up. This is what's really interesting. Runner on first base, Christian Koss comes in and lays down a perfect sacrifice bunt toward first base line. Bailey goes to second base with the winning run. Elliot Ramos on a 2-2 sweeper caught the inside part of the plate, came across the plate, and he hit the hole between shortstop and third base, and Patrick Bailey ends up scoring. Elliot Ramos gets 2 RBIs in the game, and the San Francisco Giants win 3-2 at Oracle Park, sweeping the Athletics. And these are things that you just draw on. These are things that you remember. These are games that you go, wow, this was a good game. This was a good win. And I thought this series of, after they lost 2 out of 3 to Arizona, it brought momentum into them. It brought confidence in them. And this is what you're going to dwell. You got 3 more games against the Kansas City Royals. Royals are coming in 26-22. They have their ace throwing tomorrow, Chris Bubeck, a 27-year-old lefty, 4-2 with a 1.6. But also the Giants have that trump card. They have that trump card with Robbie Ray. This will be his 10th start. The Giants have won all 9 of his starts. Of course, Robbie Ray, the 33-year-old lefty, is 6-0 with just a little over a 3.04 earned run average. 50 in the 3rd innings, 26 walks, and you can't worry about the walks. Those walks were early in the season. 55 strikeouts. Of course, he beat Arizona, the Cubs, and Colorado. In those games, he threw 19 innings, only giving up 4 earned runs. And last game against Arizona, he gave up 3 in the 1st inning and then battled for the next 5 innings, and the Giants ended up winning that game for him. So a good start tomorrow, 6:45 first pitch right here on KNBR, and that'll be a 3-game series, 2 night games, and then an afternoon game. All right, coming up next, I sat down with Jim Cott, a good friend. I've known Jim for many years. Of course, he's 86 years old. You will never believe it with this interview. He's so sharp, tells a lot of good stories, tells a lot of names that he remembered when his playing years. Pitched for 20 years, 283 wins, 231 losses, a 3-time All-Star, World Series champ. And I keep talking about this. I said it earlier, 16-time Gold Glove. 16 times he won it. and he was remarkable. He was like a goalie in hockey when you hit balls back to him. He caught everything. He was remarkable with his throws. He was so conscious with everything. And, of course, in 2022, he was elected of a member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. That's coming up next. Sit back and relax. A great conversation with a good friend, Jim Cott. That's coming up next right here on the Extra Inning Postgame Show, and that's right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
The game may be over, but we know you want to talk more ball. So KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey continues.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
We are KNBR 104.5 and 6.8, the sports leader.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning Post-Game Show with Bill Laskey. Got a special guest on today. He pitched 25 seasons in Major League Baseball, had 283 wins, 17 saves, a 3.45 earned run average as his career ended, a three-time American League All-Star, 2 with the Minnesota Twins, 1 with the Chicago White Sox, a World Series champion in 1982 with the St. Louis Cardinals, 16 consecutive Gold Gloves. The Minnesota Twins retired his number 36, as well as inducted him into the Hall of Fame. At the end of his baseball career, he became a broadcaster and an analyst for ESPN's Baseball Tonight, as well as worked for the New York Yankees broadcast team. In those years, he won 7 Emmy Awards. In 2022, he was elected as a member of the National League Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's welcome in my friend Jim Cott. Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing fine, Bill. Thank you for that lavish introduction. All those things just mean that you played for a long time.
Well, it also means you had a great career, too, and I could go on, but we'll bring those numbers up as we continue to talk. But, you know, out here in San Francisco, we got a couple of young arms, a lefty and a righty, that most of their career were a starting pitcher. Now they're coming out of the bullpen, and I want to put your pitching coach hat on because after you retired, you were a pitching coach for a few years with the Reds. And I want to talk about your career because your career, you had 625 games you started. You were in 898 games. So you did pitch a lot out of the bullpen. You had 17 saves. But it's the mental approach, the physical approach, how you warm up. I really want to get your input on what you would tell them if you were the pitching coach here.
Well, I think I had an advantage in that it was toward the end of my career when Whitey Herzog asked me to pitch out of the bullpen. And I think what I had to find out early on is as a relief pitcher, you're more of a thrower, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, than you are a pitcher. Most of your good relievers have, you know, either they throw hard or they have a cutter like Mariano or they have a splitter like Bruce Sutter. So I think the one thing I had to learn as a pitcher, because I had ordinary stuff, is the tendency is you want to throw harder than you're capable of or try harder because you know you're in a spot where you have to get this hitter out or you're going to be asked to get just 3 outs for 1 inning. As a starter, you're kind of like a marathon runner. You can kind of ease into the game, not that you don't have to pay attention early on, but there's not quite that sense of urgency. And I think what I learned after a few times that I did fairly well as a short reliever with the Cardinals, even at age 42, I think I was, that I had to learn just pitch the same way. I couldn't pitch differently than I did as a starter or try to make my stuff better. So you have to get over that, I guess you'd call it anxiety, where you come, I got to get this guy out, you know, and you tend to see you want to throw just a little bit harder than you're capable of. And it still goes back to, like I told Adam Wainwright a couple of years ago when Waino was going for his 200th win and he was struggling getting it, and I texted him and I said, hold it like an egg and don't try too hard. And, you know, and that's what, you know, it's grip pressure. To go along with the pressure of the game, you just have to learn to relax and pitch like you were. It was the first inning of the game. That's what the great ones like Goose and Bruce Sutter and Mariano, they could pitch that 9th inning as if it were the first inning. But there's only a select few that can do that. We've seen that. You've seen it in San Francisco where you have a guy that really is good in the 8th inning, but you put him in the 9th with no safety net, and he's not the same pitcher. And that's just a matter of having the experience and getting over that where you can become comfortable when it's uncomfortable.
Jim, the luxury of being a starter, you got 4 days to prepare. You have 20 minutes to warm up. You can pretty much dissect what you want to warm up in, how many times you want to start with fastball, when you bring your breaking ball and your changeup in, and you pretty much develop a routine. As a reliever, it's totally different. The phone rings, boom, you got to get up and warm up. Boom, you got to get 10 pitches in. How did you do that? Was there a format that you tried to put in place when you were a reliever?
Well, see, even going back to my starter days with the influence of Eddie Lopat and Johnny Sain, a couple of former big leaguers who, couldn't throw hard enough to black your eye, but they won 20 games because they could pitch. And I learned a lot from them. And what John had relievers do, and then I implemented that with the Reds, is I didn't hard sell it, but I said to the relievers, and I threw a little bit every day. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go back out to the mound. Like if I started and pitched 9 innings, I want to throw a little the other next day, because if I don't, I'm going to be even stiffer and sorer the second day. So what I did with the relievers, like Ted Power and Johnny Franco, I just said, hey, how'd you guys like to, as soon as batting practice starts, how'd you like to go down the bullpen and just loosen up a little, just throw a little? And it was new to them, but they tried it. And I said, the reasoning is that you come to the ballpark, you don't throw on the side, you sit in the bullpen for 2.5 hours, the phone rings, you got to get up and get ready just like that. And I said, I found that if I throw a little before the game, get almost game ready, it's 5 o'clock for a night game, then when the phone rings 3 hours later, I tended to be able to get up and get loose a lot quicker. So as the season went on, they were coming to me, hey, Coach, we're going down the bullpen today and throw early, aren't we? So, it works. So I think that's, particularly when a reliever hasn't been in the game for, say, 3 or 4 days, and then that phone rings, well, that's the advantage of throwing a little bit every day, getting a feel of your pitches and throwing from 60 feet 6 inches, repeating your motion. I think the more you can do that, you don't do it at full throttle, but the more you can do that, the more comfortable you're going to be when that phone rings and you can get up and get ready in a hurry.
Jim, later in my career when I played with the Atlanta Braves, Leo Mazzone was a pitching coach, a fabulous pitching coach in the days when the Braves won the World Series. He had us throwing a football, and he said the tighter spin of the football made your slider better, which I really felt it was a pretty good, thought pattern, and I tried it. Did you ever try to throw a football for that reason?
When I first saw that, Tom House was the pitching coach of the Rangers. And when I saw him do that, I thought, what are these guys doing? And then, when I got to talk to Tom and know him better, and just based on what you just said, I found out that is a natural release. Tom always thought that was the natural release for a baseball. Now, Leo Mazzone, he actually was a disciple of Johnny Sain. That's where he learned with the Braves that they threw twice between starts instead of one. So he picked up a lot of his stuff from Johnny. But yeah, I think throwing the football has come. The more they've studied the biomechanics of the pitching motion, that's come to be something that a lot of guys try. I mean, some take it way to an extreme. Like I can remember when Trevor Bauer before a game was throwing the ball like 200 feet. And I think if that's the way you're trained and you're used to it, you're comfortable with it, you do it. My training was the day after I went down to the mound in the bullpen, and I just made sure I threw 15 or 20 minutes every day till my arm, felt loose, and I had no arm problems during the year doing that.
That voice you hear on the Extra Inning Postgame Show is Hall of Famer Jim Cott. Jim, as in my intro, 16 consecutive Gold Gloves. A remarkable career. You ended with a .947 career fielding percentage. We always talk about PFPs. We always talk about all the things we do in spring training. During the season, Jim, did you take a lot of ground balls? Did you do things to work on your fielding?
Yeah, I think that what I did, first of all, I learned, I tell people I learned how to field my position from, I got to get out of here. My other phone is ringing there, so I'll get over here so we don't get interfered with. Yeah, I learned to field my position by listening to the radio. And people say, wow, how'd you do that? Well, Bobby Shantz was my boyhood hero. He was a little lefty back in the 50s. And the radio announcer would say, here's Bobby Shantz. He's best fielding pitcher in baseball. He's square to the mound. He's ready to go left or right. And so I patterned my motion after him. When I went to spring training the first year and we went through pitcher's drills, pitching coach said, hey, kid, you look just like Bobby Shantz. So I think, what we did in those days, and you probably you probably did. You were quite a bit after me, but we played a lot of pepper, and
Right.
you know, and I had cloth baseballs. I think they call it the Incrediball, and I would have guys with a fungo bat hit line drives at me, and practice, you know, going left, right, and so I kind of worked on that not only in spring training but during the season as well.
You know, a couple things that you did when you were on the mound, you held runners close. I mean, when I'm looking at base running percentages, very limited against you. So another, you know, thought pattern as a left-handed pitcher, different moves to first base, holding the runners, hold the ball a little longer. There was different variances you did, because I remembered you as a left-hand starter as well as a reliever. But guys would always take that extra step. And when I talk pitching, I always say, don't look at the front foot, look at the back foot, because then you can find out if they're taking that little extra step. Tell me some of the variances that you watched when you were looking at base runners.
Well, when I came up, the only speed in the game was Louis Aparicio. Speed was not a big factor back in the 60s, and then, you know, when Oakland began to come up with some speed, Campaneris, Billy North, Reggie could run, and in the National League, particularly when the stolen base became more of a weapon, well, Johnny's saying, I really think that I'm the first pitcher that used the slide step. So when you come set with your hands at your waist, the first thing you do is you lift your leg up and you sort of coil into your backside to gain a little leverage. Well, what he had me do was a very awkward, I sat on my back leg to begin with, so I didn't have to go back, and then I could pick up my front foot and go, and I could get the ball from movement to mitt in a second, maybe 1.1. And so with getting a look at the base runners, I didn't have an excellent pickoff move, but I was able to look at the runner as a lefty, so I could kind of tell when he got a little too far off, and then I would step off. Or sometimes I might step off and make a quick throw to first. But most of it was just by, as you said, varying your count. You might come to the set with a 1,002, 1,000, whatever, and then deliver, and the next time you just stop for an instant. So I think those are the things that, as a lefty, we had such an advantage, and was able to vary the amount of time. But I think that slide step, I know the biggest compliment I got after I retired and would run into him at reunions is Lou Brock never tried to steal a base against me, because he said I couldn't get a jump because I didn't know, you know, when you were going to deliver the ball. So, you know, that worked for me. I didn't pick a lot of guys off, but I tried to give my catcher a good chance to throw him out.
That voice you hear on the Extra Inning post-game show, my good friend Jim Cott, and we talk pitching, and now we're going to talk a little bit about starting pitching. In your earlier years, when you were 23 years old, 269 innings, that was the first one. But then when you were 27 years old, you broke the 300 inning mark, 304 and 2/3 innings. What I want to ask you is, in between starts, what did you do to keep the length, strengthen your legs, continue to keep agile? What were some of the things you did? Because when back in those days, you were pitching only on 4 days rest instead of 5 days. You were a 4-man rotation. Some of the things you did for your arms, arm weights, arm stretching, what were some of the things you did to prepare yourself for that next start?
I think the main thing I did during my career, entire career, was throwing a baseball. I never got into weights. I never got into unusual exercises. Fortunately, being a decent fielder, they allowed me to go to the infield, so I would field ground balls with whoever our shortstop was, and then make that hop step and throw over to first base. You know, not trying to throw it hard, but just going through the motion. And then I'd go to the outfield, and the pitchers, we'd play a game shagging flies, you know, so you could catch the most flies. So I got a lot of work in doing that, and then with stationary bikes. So I think those are really the things that I did between starts.
A few more minutes with Jim Cott on the Extra Inning post-game show. You know, going through stats and looking through your statistics, I look at hitters that you faced and you got out, and some hitters that didn't. You had trouble with. And you had mentioned him earlier. That was Brooks Robinson, a guy that could put the ball all over the field. And I looked at what he did, and then I looked what Al Kaline did. Both of these guys, Hall of Famers along with you. What was difficult about both of them that made you a tough out?
Yeah, I tell you, Kaline was my number one nemesis. I mean, he not only could hit for average, but he hit more home runs against me. And I remember there were a couple rare times where I got him out, and I used to kid him. I'd see him the next day. I said, you really trying yesterday? So I couldn't pick the ball up. But, yeah, and Brooksy was one of those guys, if the winning run was on second with 2 out, Brooks Robinson's the guy you wanted to hit a base hit and knock him in. And, he didn't hit a lot of home runs, but those two guys gave me a lot of trouble. Kaline was a guy, don't push him off the plate or knock him down because he's like Frank Robinson. He's only going to get better. And I found that the one pitch, I think it's missing today. One of the pitches that's missing today is the curveball, particularly the slow curve. So I found that guys that were in a good rhythm and had success, I tried to change my speeds, particularly on my curveball, and that worked occasionally. But against Brooksy, I faced more than any other hitter in my career, and he faced me more than any other pitcher. So he was pretty comfortable against me.
Well, going against guys that you got out, I mean, 2 of them were big names. Reggie Jackson only hit $137 off you, and you struck him out 27 times. Rico Petrocelli, 213. Roy White was another cuff out, but he hit a 141. A couple good right-handers and a couple good a good left-hander with Reggie. How did you get these guys? Was there a sequence that you went to, or did you mix it up?
Well, Reggie, that was kind of a funny story. When Reggie came up, he was within the Kansas City A's, and he came up out of the minor leagues, and we didn't have the detailed scouting reports, and so I saw the lineup card, and it had Jackson with the letter L next to his name, which meant he was a left-hand hitter. And I said, anybody know about this kid Jackson? And somebody said, well, we heard in the minor leagues, he's got good power to the opposite field, which in those days was unusual. You had McCovey, Stargell, in the National League, but very few left-hand hitters took you out of the ballpark the opposite way. They're primarily pull hitters. And so I said to Earl Batty, well, when Reggie comes up, I said, because my fastball moved. I don't think lefties have that moving fastball for some reason that we used to, but my ball moved in on left-hand hitters quite well. So I said, if we get ahead of them, we got to run one in there and push them off the plate. And so I threw one in there. It got a little too high and a little too far in, and it hit Reggie on the knob of the bat. And he was sprawling in the dirt. And so the next I threw him a little knee-buckling break-a-ball in the outside corner, and, he backed off and swung and missed. And I said to Earl after the game, every game that we face them, I've got to push him off the plate once or twice. So after our careers ended and we were teammates briefly with the Yankees, Reggie always said to me, he said, I knew you were coming in there once or twice a game. I just didn't know when. And I said, Reg, that's the point. And so probably the best compliment he gave me is I had a 1-run lead in Chicago, and he was a leadoff hitter. So he's the one guy that can take me out of the park. He tried to drag a bunt on me. I thought that was a good. Now, Rico, I think maybe I had success against Rico because right-hand hitters in Fenway Park, they like the ball middle in, particularly early in the count because of that green monster out there, so they could pull the ball. And my ball moved down and away. So, I knew they were trying to pull the ball. So, pitching down and away and getting it off the end of the bat worked out perfectly. And I just happened to do that pretty well against Rico, and probably the same thing with Roy.
Jim, as we finish up here, you wore the number 36 most of your career. The Minnesota Twins retired it. Was there a reason why you wore that number?
No, it was just handed to me. Actually, when I first got called up, they gave me 21. That was Warren Spahn's number, which I kind of like because I had great respect for Spahny, and I got a pitching lesson from him. But in my early days, but they just gave it to me. And when the Twins retired it, you'll recognize this name. I said, there's another guy that wore 36 that has every right to have his number retired in Minnesota, and that's Joe Nathan. Because Joe had the highest save percentage of anybody and was so successful with the Twins. But no, it was a number they just gave me. And the only years I didn't wear it is when I was with the Phillies, because the great Robin Roberts wore 36 and they retired his number.
Well, Jim, it's a pleasure talking to you all the time. It's great reminiscing, and I just want to thank you for your time today. And like I said, congratulations again on a great career. I'm just so happy you're a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Bill, I appreciate that, and I want to tell you I'm a big fan of the Giants out there. I'm so happy what Buster and his administration has done. They're training their pitchers to go deep in the game. And I pull for the Giants so badly because I want to see guys who operated as former players be successful.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Jim. That was Jim Cott
Bill.
on the Extra Inning Postgame Show. More coming up right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
You're listening to the former Giants righty. It's KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
Heard on your Apple HomePod by saying play KNBR.
Welcome back to the Extra Inning Postgame Show as we wind down a Sunday. Giants sweep the Athletics, winning 3-2 earlier today in an afternoon game. They're now 28-19 on the season, 16-7 at Oracle Park, and they start a 3-game series tomorrow against the Kansas City Royals. First pitch, 6:45. Robbie Ray 6-0 against Chris Bubik, and he's 4-2 for the Kansas City Royals. I want to thank my two guests today, Kyle Harrison and Jim Cott, the Hall of Famer. If you missed any of those are going to be on the All KNBR podcast. And I want to thank my producer today, Kyle Haar. Did a great job, and all you Giants fans for calling in. It was a great show. I appreciate all the conversations about the San Francisco Giants, and boy, a great weekend sweeping the Athletics. I'll be on Sports Phone KNBR for the post-game shows on Monday and Tuesday. If you want to join me after the games, got a couple guests for those. But in the meantime, have a great rest of the Sunday. What a beautiful day here it is in Northern California. I'm Bill Laskey. Be safe, be well. More coming up right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
It's another great outing for the righty on your home of San Francisco Giants baseball. This is KNBR Extra Innings with Bill Laskey.
Sponsored by Lenardi's Markets of the Bay Area. Quite simply, the best.
KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.